While watching some old footage from when his children were younger, Roy gets emotional, because lately his family has become more and more distant. That night, the man decides to try to get closer to his son and asks him to help him fix his camera. But Kevin says he's busy playing with his friends and scolds his father for breaking into his room. After losing the match, the young man decides to try to help him fix his camera, but claims that the device is too old and he doesn't know how to fix it. Just then, the police ring the doorbell and, on opening the door, Roy discovers that his daughter has been caught trying to steal a beer from the convenience store. Luckily, the sellers decided not to press charges and Taylor was only reprimanded by the police. When they leave, the young woman reveals that she had to steal because the vendors wouldn't let her buy the drink because she was underage. Upon hearing this, Roy is furious and gives his daughter a lecture, as she has shown a lot of rebellious behavior. When she hears the argument, Elaine appears and orders Taylor to go to her room so that she and Roy can talk about what happened. Frustrated, the girl's parents try to find an effective way to reprimand her for what she has done, and Elaine says that the only way to correct Taylor's behavior is to keep her away from bad influences. So the couple decides to spend a few days away on a family vacation and everyone gets ready to leave the next morning. That night, a lady who had been captured and was being held captive is eliminated by a masked man, who hits her skull with a drill. In the morning, Roy and his family arrive at the Pine Hotel and, while her parents are checking in, Taylor overhears two young men talking about going to the concert of their favorite band. At that moment, the young woman enters the conversation and tells him that she had tickets to go to the concert that weekend, but her parents interrupted her plans by going to that hotel. Noticing that Taylor is having a difficult day, Theo decides to order her a drink and shows an interest in getting to know her. When it comes time to make the payment, Roy discovers that the hotel's internet isn't working, so he has to pay in cash. When he hears this, Kevin feels deeply uncomfortable, as he can't imagine what his next few days will be like without access to Wi-Fi. At this point, the attendant reveals that the hotel does not provide internet for its customers, as it was specifically designed to provide quality time for guests to reconnect. While trying to attract the attention of the young man she has just met, Taylor receives a call from her mother and decides to go and meet her. Before saying goodbye, Theo invites her to his room for the night and Taylor says she'll try to sneak out without her parents knowing. Suddenly, Elaine appears at the bar and invites her daughter to sit with her. While they're talking, the barman comes over to offer her a beer and shows that he's interested in Elaine. After Mark leaves, mother and daughter resume their conversation and the woman says she doesn't mind Taylor drinking, as long as she doesn't get drunk and get into trouble. That night, after leaving work, Sarah sees an unknown man tying a rope to a nearby tree. Suddenly, the man starts running towards her, so the woman tries to open the car door, but realizes it's locked. While trying to look through the window, Sarah is attacked by a woman who is hiding inside the car and kicks the door in on her. When the woman falls to the ground, the pursuer gets out of the vehicle and walks towards her. A few minutes later, Oswald, one of the hotel's janitors, appears at reception and asks where Linda is. At that moment, Lockwood introduces himself and says he'll take him to her. Arriving at the warehouse, Oswald starts looking for Linda, but is hit on the head and collapses. As he walks towards the room, Kevin sees an employee installing a security camera and discovers that only the people who work there have access to the internet. Suddenly, another guest appears with a can of beer in his hand and accidentally knocks over the ladder. Just then, Brad falls to the ground and, instead of apologizing, Howard blames him for blocking the corridor. When the whole family is gathered in the bedroom, Roy reveals that he has bought tickets for the Ultimate Universe, a famous amusement park in the city. When he receives this news, Kevin is very excited, but Taylor is even more unhappy to learn that she will miss her favorite band's concert to go to an amusement park made for children. After striking the janitor, Lockwood asks Brad and Bobby to help him carry the man off, but Brad asks his boss to leave him out of it, as he has already done his job of installing security cameras throughout the hotel. At that moment, Lockwood leaves the room to talk to Brad in private while Bobby ties Oswald to a chair. After paying his employee, the man orders him to leave and locks all the hotel doors. Hours later, when he finishes his shift at the bar, Mark decides to go to the arcade to have some fun and, while he is distracted by his game, he is surprised by the arrival of a man in a hoodie. After scaring him, Player 1 leaves and Mark is attacked by Player 4, who suddenly appears and slams his head against the arcade machine. When Mark falls to the ground, the man uses a tool to cut off his nose and manages to rip it off. Player 4 then takes his hammer and destroys the employee with several blows to the head. In the early hours of the morning, while her parents and brother are asleep, Taylor decides to sneak off to Theo's room. When she gets there, the young man invites her to spend some time outside and she calls Theo to go to the roof so as not to risk setting off the smoke detectors. Meanwhile, Elaine is woken up by the noise of the guests in the next room, so she decides to wake Roy up so that he can go and ask for quiet. Knocking on the door, the man is answered by Nick and he says he'll ask his friends to keep the noise down. At that moment, Player 3 breaks into one of the bedrooms and finds Patty and Fred having fun in the bathtub. While she distracts the couple, Player 2 attacks the young man with a bottle and, after eliminating him in the bathtub, the man walks towards Patty with a wine opener. Just as she is about to be attacked, the young woman manages to kick the pursuer and gets rid of her attackers. She immediately goes to check if her boyfriend is still alive, but when she realizes that Fred is no longer breathing, she despairs. While the young woman cries compulsively, Player 2 takes the opportunity to attack her and hits her foot so that she can't get away. At that moment, Patty slowly crawls through the corridors screaming for help, but she ends up being captured and the criminal manages to drag her back into the room seconds before Roy appears. When they woke up, the couple realized that Taylor had fled the room, but Roy couldn't find her. So he decides to go and talk to his wife and Kevin decides to help his father continue the search. Believing that his daughter may be in the garden, Roy decides to go out to look for her, but discovers that the front door is locked and can only be opened with a password. Suddenly, the pair are caught by one of the players, but instead of attacking them, Player 1 goes into the bedroom after Elaine. Hearing knocks on her door, the woman looks through the peephole to check who is on the other side and is startled to see a masked man staring at the door. But when Elaine says she'll call reception, Player 1 leaves and she goes back to bed. Minutes later, the woman hears the door opening and thinks her husband is back, but soon realizes that Roy hasn't entered the room and closes the door again. After checking that the main door is locked, Roy comes to the conclusion that his daughter can't have left the hotel, so he decides to knock on all the rooms in the hope of finding her. At this point, he meets Amy and gives her his daughter's features, but the woman says she hasn't seen her and closes the door in Roy's face. Suddenly, Dave appears and claims to have seen Taylor leaving the room next to his companion and a young man. After giving the number of the room they were in, Dave reveals that he tried to get out to breathe, but all the hotel doors are locked. While in her armchair reading a book, Elaine is attacked by Player 1, who tries to suffocate her with his bare hands. Trying to get away from the attack, the woman spots a pen on the next table and uses it to strike the man in the neck. After throwing a glass cup in his direction, Elaine tries to run away, but her back is hit by a knife and then the criminal uses a wire to hit her neck. Before welcoming the guests, Lockwood made sure to install security cameras in all the rooms to ensure that the eliminations were broadcast live to the punters. The truth is that he is the organizer of a frightening game and considers all the hotel guests to be participants. The aim of this game is for the players to eliminate all their prey by dawn in the most insane way possible. While Taylor and Theo kiss on the terrace, the young woman manages to convince him to go to the 1 to 11 concert. Instead of going inside the hotel, the couple decide to go down the stairs to the terrace so as not to risk meeting Taylor's parents on the way. At that moment, Oswald is being attacked by Lockwood, who uses a dagger in the shape of a screw to hit different parts of the old man's body until he eliminates him. After knocking on the room where Dave said his daughter was and not being answered, Roy decides to go back to his room because he hopes Taylor is there. But when he gets closer, he notices that the door is open and the handle is smeared with blood. Cautious, the man goes in to check that his wife is all right and finds Elaine's body on the floor with a deep wound in her throat. Immediately, Roy takes out his cell phone to call the police and then discovers that the phone signal has been cut. Desperate, he takes his son's tablet and gives it to the young boy to try to get an internet signal to call for help. At that moment, Dave approaches and Roy orders him to stay away, as he doesn't know if that guy is involved in the elimination of his wife. Seeing that the man is suspicious of him, Dave shows his badge and claims to be part of the LAPD. After seeing Elaine's body, Dave takes the pair to his room and asks Kevin to play his video game while he goes to talk to Roy. So far, the young boy doesn't know that his mother has been eliminated and Dave goes to get his gun to protect himself because he knows there's a criminal on the loose. The policeman then promises to help Roy find his daughter before something bad happens to her. To make sure his son is safe, Roy asks him to stay in the room and only open the door when he hears his secret knock. The pair are walking around the pool area when they come across Howard completely drunk. After discovering that all the doors are locked, the man begins to suspect that something is wrong and calls his wife to get out of the hotel. Suddenly, the group hears a voice coming from the speakers and Lockwood informs them that all the guests are taking part in a game, which they unknowingly signed up for when they booked into the hotel. Upon hearing the noise, John and Amy appear in the courtyard and the other customers realize that something is wrong when all the lights go out. Just then, the group hears Donna's screams and, when the lights come back on, the survivors discover that Howard and his wife have been finished off in a frightening way. Soon after, Two players show up to get rid of the other guests and John tries to steal the gun from Dave's hands to shoot them. At this point, the pistol falls to the ground and the old man's skull is destroyed by player 4, who manages to eliminate him with his bare hands. Meanwhile, Amy is captured and both Dave and Roy decide to hide so they don't end up becoming the next victims. When his father left the room, Kevin began to suspect that something was wrong and used his knowledge to hack into the hotel's security cameras. Accessing the footage, the young man sees Mark being attacked and watches in horror as he is eliminated. At that moment, Lockwood manages to detect the invasion and contacts Kevin to terrify him, saying that his mother has been eliminated. After hearing this, the young man runs out of the room and goes looking for his parents to make sure they are all right. After hearing Lockwood's statement, Nick and his friends leave the room to try and find out what the game is all about and soon come across two players. When she realizes that the couple is armed, Michelle tries to run away, but ends up being attacked by player 3, who hits her in the stomach with a blade. Nick is then captured and Monica manages to escape. After having his hands nailed to the door, the young man has his skin cut off and the criminals use the tip of a knife to play tic-tac-toe on their victim's abdomen. During the escape, Monica finds Kevin and helps the young man escape, as player 1 soon begins to hunt them down. As she runs away from the criminal, the young woman knocks on the doors of the rooms to ask for help, but no one comes to her rescue. Terrified, the girl runs for the elevator and ends up trapped. When the door finally opens, Monica is captured by player 3 and Kevin flees so as not to become the next victim. After arriving at the warehouse, the woman releases her prey so that she can try to escape, but when she realizes that she has nowhere else to go, Monica decides to confront her. However, the player manages to knock her opponent down with a kick and, while she is being attacked, Monica hits the woman in the neck with a fork. At this point, player 3 moves away and removes the sharp object from her neck, but ends up losing a lot of blood and is eliminated. Immediately, Monica looks for a way out and manages to escape through the window. After getting through, the woman ends up in the pool area and breathes a sigh of relief believing she is safe, but another player soon appears and attacks her with a shovel. Returning to Dave's room, Roy discovers that his son is no longer there and goes to look for him. However, as soon as the pair leave the room, player 4 appears and attacks them. While Dave tries to recover from the blow, the player attacks Roy with a metal pipe and tries to finish him off. Desperate, the man tries to free himself and Dave finds the perfect opportunity to strike his enemy with an iron. Even after taking a blow to the head, player 4 remains on his feet and easily knocks the policeman down. He then walks towards Roy and pushes him against the wall with a kick. After throwing his victim against the ceiling, the man picks up the bedside table and intends to use it to destroy Roy's head, but before he can do so, he ends up being eliminated by numerous shots. Meanwhile, Kevin continues to run away from the number 1 player and hides in the kitchen in an attempt to lose him. However, his enemy manages to follow his tracks and goes after him. After finding him, player is about to eliminate the young man when he hears a security alert ordering all the players to gather in the lobby. When he hears this message, the stalker leaves and Kevin manages to get out of the situation unharmed. At this point, Taylor and Theo have just returned to the hotel, as the girl was afraid of being punished by her parents when they found out that she had run off with a stranger during the night. As they walk through the corridors, the young people spot the bodies of Michelle and Nick, who have been deliberately left in a frightening position, and Taylor panics. Just then, player 2 appears and attacks Theo with a spear. After being hit in the abdomen, the young man is eliminated and, despite not being seriously injured, Taylor collapses in despair. While searching for his son, Roy is attacked by player 1, who uses a knife to try and hit him in the stomach. Instead of helping his partner survive the attack, Dave decides to run away and leave him behind. Minutes later, he arrives at the control room and finds the images from all the security cameras. After hacking into Lockwood's computer, Dave follows the duel on the security cameras and hopes that Roy loses the battle. During the fight, the two men end up in the blind spot of the security camera and the policeman anxiously follows the fight as it unfolds. When he sees the player coming back for his knife, he celebrates, because he believes that Roy has been eliminated and that means he was the winner of that game. At that moment, the man who was in the chair with his body covered gets up and slowly walks towards him. After hitting Dave with his blade, Lockwood removes his mask and claims that he cheated. The truth is that Dave is one of the bettors and has infiltrated the game in order to ensure his victory. However, Lockwood hates cheats and decides to eliminate him with a drill as punishment for interfering with the rules of the game and disrupting the final result. Looking at the security camera footage, Lockwood discovers that Kevin is still alive and informs players 1 and 2 that whoever is able to eliminate him will receive triple points in that game. After hearing this, the only 2 players still alive rush to find the young man, at which point Taylor wakes up. When he gets to the kitchen, Player 2 finds Kevin and the young man tries to run away, but is relieved when he finds out that it's his father. The truth is that Roy managed to get rid of Player 2 and stole his costume to go unnoticed by the cameras. At that moment, the man puts together a plan to get his son out of the kitchen safely. When Player 2 appears, Kevin pretends to have been eliminated and Player 1 carries him out. However, on returning to the shoot, Lockwood discovers that Roy is impersonating a player and orders Player 2 to attack them. Immediately, the man picks up a wooden rolling pin and strikes Roy, then tries to squeeze his neck. Seeing his father in danger, Kevin grabs the player's dagger and strikes him in the back. At this point, Roy manages to react and pushes Player 2 over the stove. With the help of his son, he lights the fire and sets his enemy's body on fire. Finally, the man picks up a frying pan and manages to hit him. When he realizes that all the players have been eliminated, Lockwood takes his axe and goes after Roy to finish the job. Seeing the old man approaching, Roy orders Kevin to flee and, when Lockwood tries to hit his opponent with the axe, the man manages to knock him down. When Lockwood is on the ground, Roy lands numerous punches to his face and manages to black out his opponent. He then runs towards his son and celebrates the fact that they have both survived the chaos. Just then, Taylor appears and hits her father with a spear because she mistakes him for one of the players and believes her brother is in danger. When she finds out what she has done, the girl panics and tries to help her father up, but Roy has had one of his lungs hit and can no longer breathe. Before he perishes, he asks Taylor to look after her younger brother and has the chance to say goodbye to his children. Lockwood then gets up and the young woman attacks him to protect Kevin, but she ends up getting stuck in the wall. After kicking the man, Taylor takes the axe and removes Lockwood's head. Minutes later, the girl manages to contact the police and both she and her brother are rescued by Detective Hart. However, the game isn't over yet, because right after the two siblings win that match, the organizer announces that new players are about to arrive and counts on the audience of streamers all over the country. The next challenge will take place inside a movie theater. When she realizes that there is something wrong there, Sophia tries to escape and comes across an insane scene where the employees are being eliminated by a player dressed as a butcher. Seeing his co-workers in danger, Bruce immediately tries to open the door to stop the attack, but ends up being captured. Minutes later, Sophia is taken to a room where she meets Bobby and the Master of Ceremonies, who claims to be responsible for coordinating the game. At that moment, the young woman watches Bruce being electrocuted in a chair and realizes that she will soon become the next victim. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.